This land is a mirror, and the world cannot look away. It is as if every unresolved wound of humanity, every guilt and every fear, every prejudice and every shadow has chosen this small strip of earth as its stage. When rockets fall in Gaza or bombs land on Tel Aviv, the whole planet reacts, not only with politics, but with passion, with fury, with grief, with accusation. Nations far away, people with no direct tie to the land, speak as if the conflict is their own. And in a sense, it is. For this conflict has become the mirror in which the world sees itself. The mirror reflects first the shadow of Europe. For centuries, Jews lived there as a scattered minority, often reviled, excluded, and persecuted. Pogroms swept through villages, ghettos confined them to narrow streets, myths accused them of poisoning wells and killing children. Then came the Holocaust. 6 million exterminated in camps and ovens, the attempt to erase an entire people. The guilt of this crime, the deepest scar of European modernity, still hangs in the air. And when Israel was founded, Europe's guilt was projected outward. Support for the Jewish state was not only strategic, but penitential, a way to atone for centuries of hatred. To criticize Israel too strongly felt, to many, like reopening the wound of antisemitism. The Jewish state became both a refuge and a screen, a place where Europe could displace its guilt, protecting itself from seeing the antisemitism still alive in its own shadows. The mirror also reflects the wounds of the Arab and Muslim world. For centuries, empires and colonial powers divided and ruled their lands, drawing borders and foreign offices, extracting resources, humiliating cultures. When Israel was established, many in the region saw not only Jewish return, but European imposition, another chapter in the long story of colonialism. The wound of dispossession in Palestine merged with the memory of colonial subjugation, turning Israel into a symbol of Western domination. To resist Israel became, for many, to resist the entire legacy of humiliation inflicted by the West. The anger at colonialism, unresolved and burning, was projected onto this land, amplifying the conflict beyond its local scale. The mirror reflects, too, the rivalry of superpowers. During the Cold War, Israel aligned with the United States, while Arab states and Palestinian factions aligned with the Soviet Union. The land became a proxy battlefield where East and West tested their strategies, their weapons, their ideologies. The people who lived there became pawns in a global game of shadow projection, as if the struggle of capitalism and communism could be played out in the streets of Jerusalem and the hills of the West Bank. When the Cold War ended, the proxy war faded, but the residue of global entanglement remained. To this day, alliances around the conflict reveal deeper geopolitical shadows. And beyond politics, the mirror reflects human prejudice. Anti-Semitism never died. It only changed form. It still finds expression in conspiracy theories, in whispers of global control, in stereotypes that refuse to fade. At the same time, Islamophobia spreads fear of Muslims as violent, irrational, dangerous, casting suspicion on millions for the acts of a few. In the conflict, these shadows become amplified. Defenders of Israel sometimes speak in ways that erase Palestinian humanity. Defenders of Palestine sometimes fall into language that repeats anti-Semitic tropes. The conflict becomes a stage where the world rehearses its prejudices, confirming its fears instead of healing them. This is the archetype of projection. What we cannot bear to face in ourselves, we cast onto others. Europe casts its guilt onto Israel and Palestine. The Arab world casts its wounds of colonial humiliation. Superpowers cast their thirst for dominance. Individuals cast their hatred of Jews or Muslims. The land becomes a screen, and the people who live there carry burdens not entirely their own. Their conflict is real, but it is also inflated by shadows that belong to others. Projection explains the strange intensity with which the world engages this conflict compared to others. Wars rage in Congo, in Yemen, in Myanmar, and the world scarcely notices. But when violence flares in Gaza or Jerusalem, millions march in the streets. Governments convene emergency sessions. People choose sides with fervor. Why? Because here everyone sees themselves. Jews see their survival, Muslims see their dignity, Christians see their holy sites, Europeans see their guilt, Arabs see their wounds, Americans see their strategic ally. The world sees its prejudices, its traumas, its shadows. And so the conflict becomes more than local. It becomes a mirror of global humanity. But mirrors do not lie, they only reflect. What we see here is not only about Israel and Palestine, it is about ourselves. When we rage at one side or the other, we are often raging at something within us. Our fear of being rejected, our guilt for past crimes, our anxiety about survival, our anger at injustice. The land holds the mirror steady, and we react, not realizing that much of what we see is our own face, distorted by shadow. The danger of projection is that it blinds us to reality. When guilt or prejudice speaks, we do not see the people in front of us. We see only symbols of our own unresolved pain. Israelis become not people but stand-ins for survival or power. Palestinians become not people but stand-ins for resistance or victimhood. The real lives of millions, their children, their dreams, their sorrows, are obscured by the projections cast upon them. And when people are seen as symbols instead of humans, compassion collapses and violence continues. The only way to end projection is to own the shadow. Europe must face its antisemitism not by uncritically shielding Israel, but by healing the prejudice in its own heart. The Arab world must face its colonial wounds not only by resisting Israel, but by reclaiming dignity in its own right. The West must face its Islamophobia and its entanglement in endless wars. Humanity must face that we have sacrificed children not only in Israel and Palestine, but everywhere we allowed our shadows to govern us. Until the world does this, the mirror will keep shattering, and each time it breaks, more lives will be cut on its shards. This land is a mirror, and the world cannot look away. But perhaps the time has come not only to look, but to see. To see that what burns here is not only a local conflict, but a reflection of our global wounds. To see that healing here requires healing everywhere. To see that projection blinds, but recognition frees. For when the world owns its shadow, the mirror can finally stop shattering. And perhaps, instead of reflecting our fear, it will reflect our light.